Hey YouTube, welcome back to my channel. So this video today is going to be about anhedonia. So before I get into the details, I just wanted to mention I am doing one-on-one coaching for those who need it. I am offering it at lower rates than other places you might find online. So I offer a free 15-minute consultation, 30-minute calls, 60-minute calls, and then I've put together some session packages at further reduced rates. So if you're interested in checking out my online booking calendar, I will leave the link to that in the description of this video. I also will leave the link to my website where you can read more of my story if you're unfamiliar with it. I also have the services I offer listed there, and you can book straight through the website if you want, so you can check that out. I will leave the link to that, as well as my email address. If you just have a single question you want to ask me, feel free to email me. So onto the video today about anhedonia. I've been getting a lot of requests to talk about this. So I will say that in my first withdrawal from long-term SSRI use, that was when I experienced the anhedonia. I did experience it on the drugs, but I didn't know what it was or what it was called or what I was experiencing exactly. In my second withdrawal, after I reinstated and took 8 different drugs and then was cold turkeyed off all of those, had adverse reactions, and also that included benzos, I just was so heightened, in a heightened state for so long, I didn't experience the anhedonia. But in my first withdrawal and on my first drug towards the end, when I was experiencing what you'd call poop out, I guess, that was when I experienced anhedonia. So I remember how it first manifested, or when I first experienced it, was about 5 years into SSRI use. And it coincided close to the same time as when my friend died. And so I just thought I was grieving. I just thought I was going through a grief process. And I went to a counselor because I was really struggling with the meaning of life. And suddenly it was just like all of my passion for life and everything that I had loved, including my job. I was very social. I had lots of friends. I had lots of things that I loved doing. I was one of those people that was always going, very busy. I don't think I was quite in a relationship at that time. Shortly after that was when I went into a long-term relationship. But I just was feeling really like life has no meaning, life is pointless. And I remember thinking, where are these thoughts coming from? And I just felt nothing. I felt checked out. That's the best way that I can describe it. And it was quite powerful. And I remember it scaring me. And because I've always been someone who's very empathic, who feels their emotions very strongly, who is very in tune with their emotions and wears them on their sleeve. And so the fact that I suddenly just felt nothing, I thought it was grief. And maybe that was part of it. I'm sure it was, because it was right around that time that it happened. But I also was experiencing in that same year what I believe now were other poop out symptoms. So I was having nocturnal panic attacks. I was having suicidal thoughts. I was having obsessive thoughts that were a manifestation of what you would call, I guess, somatic OCD. So I was becoming very aware of my breathing, my swallowing, my blinking, and it would last for a few days. It would go away, and just days where I would just feel really anxious all day long. And I couldn't figure out why that was happening. And then I was feeling this anhedonia. And I remember at one point I was researching becoming a police officer, because in my mind I was like, well, then there's a chance that I might get shot, and that might make me feel something. If I'm always on my toes and have to be worrying about my dangerous job, it might make me feel something again. I remember that really well. And I was watching this video on, I don't know if it was the news or YouTube or what it was. And there was this woman she was a reporter, and she got shot at on live television. And I remember watching that video over and over and thinking, oh, she's so lucky. She has to run and dodge these bullets, and it's so exciting. And I just feel nothing. And I remember being like, what's wrong with me? That's a really twisted way of thinking. But it would come and go because I was still on the drug. But I remember having these manifestations of these symptoms I just described off and on in the last, I don't know, probably about 2 to 3 years on SSRIs. Whereas the first 3 or 4 years, I actually felt like the drug was amazing, because I went on the drug for situational depression when I lost my job. And I had always been someone who had struggled with anxiety, like low-level anxiety, but panic attacks as well. But I had gotten them under control through CBT and self-help prior to ever starting the drugs. So the only reason I went on them was because I had this situational depression from being laid off. But in the first couple of years, I remember just feeling almost euphoric when I took them, and it took away all my feelings of stress, any feelings of depression I had from losing the job. Everything just went away. And I remember I went out with a friend one night, and I discovered was taking the same drug as me, and we just raved about it over alcohol because I started drinking heavily on the drug, and that was something that snuck up on me, and I ended up in AA. That's a whole other story. But I didn't realize that craving alcohol was a side effect of antidepressants, but it snuck up on me. Anyway, that's a topic for another video. But I did think the drug just worked fantastically for the first few years, and then I started getting all these breakthrough symptoms, didn't know where it was coming from. And then when I quit the drug, I did a 4-week taper and had no idea that you should do it more slowly. I was medically supervised. I didn't even know there was a withdrawal syndrome from antidepressants. It took me 8 months off the drug to figure out that there was withdrawal, and that's what I had been experiencing, because when I stopped the drug, I just developed all of these symptoms. I developed looping intrusive thoughts. I developed fatigue mixed with insomnia, headaches, nausea. I always felt like I had the flu. I had brain zaps. I had all kinds of symptoms. They weren't as intense as my second withdrawal after I took all of the drugs, but it was definitely bad enough to interfere with my day-to-day life, although I was still able to carry on a job. But I remember coming home and filming myself just for my own sort of video diary and just bawling. I still have the videos, bawling and just being like, what's wrong with me? Do I have some unprocessed trauma I need to work through? I just didn't know that I was in a withdrawal state. And so then the anhedonia happened again when I came off the drug, but it lasted about 6 months straight. It wasn't the up and down from the last few months on the drug. That's how it was then. And I remember being at work, because I could still work in my first withdrawal, at my computer and Googling, why does life feel so meaningless? Why is it so pointless? And it wasn't it was kind of like depression, but it was more like just this general numbness. And it would give me panic attacks because I couldn't feel anything, and I just felt disconnected. And I've said in other videos, I do believe a lot of these symptoms overlap, but we like to compartmentalize things and put things into nice, neat little labels. And I felt this disconnect. And so you could call that depression, DPDR, anhedonia. I know each of those symptoms or diagnoses, they're not diagnoses, they're symptoms, have other symptoms associated with them as well, but there is this general overlap, it seems. So I had this disconnection. I had this feeling that life was pointless. I felt emotionally numb, checked out. I didn't feel anything, and that was so tough for someone like me who felt a lot of happiness and joy and comfort, and it was just like that was zapped. And I've heard a lot of people talk about this symptom, and some people will say it was like something zapped in my brain and just everything went away. And when I said zap for myself, I didn't mean I physically felt a zap, but I've heard people describe it that way. It was like something buzzed or zapped in their brain and all of their emotions were gone. Whereas other people, it seemed like it was maybe a more gradual thing, or it happened right when they stopped the drugs, but they didn't have a physical sensation associated with it. So, but I've said in many other videos, and it's my personal belief, that it doesn't matter your particular symptom, because like I said, we like to label them and put them in nice little boxes. But the overarching thing is nervous system dysregulation, fight, flight, freeze, fawn mode that we go into from the chemical changes that these drugs make, and then the abrupt cessation of them. And just like everything else, it'll go away like everything else does when you recover. And it's so hard to describe this sometimes to people or convince people that that's the truth, but it is. I remember when I was stuck in any particular symptom, which was 24/7 for a very long time, just seeing no way out. Like, I could not process how it will just go away one day. I was like, how does that even work? You're just in this sick, heightened, very poisoned feeling state for so long. How does it just go away like that? It just would make me mad when people would say that, but it's the truth. And you could experience, like I experienced, where you're bad. I had no windows in my first withdrawal. My second withdrawal, the first 6 months I didn't have any. Then I would get glimmers of them. And then over time they got longer and longer and longer. But then there was one point where I just felt these weird pleasant sensations in my brain. And then I just felt like I started to recover rapidly. And there's other people who have similar stories. 2 weeks and suddenly they were better. Or overnight, they went to bed sick and woke up and they felt healed. So just like everything else, like I said, it will recover. You will recover from anhedonia just like every other symptom once you come out of this. And I don't think that there's anything magical that will bring you out of it. I know some people do find supplements and certain treatments helpful, and I'm not trying to deter anyone from trying anything at all. Of course, you should try what you feel is right for you, but I'm just saying that once you recover and your nervous system starts to regulate again, the symptoms just dissipate. They just start to drop off and you become unaware that you ever had them. And you will potentially experience some trauma. I mean, I don't want to scare people by saying that, but that's the reality. What this is very traumatic for a lot of people. But even so, I was saying to someone today, once you start to recover and your brain becomes less scrambled and you can think clearly and you feel like you're coming back into your body, that trauma or those traumatic feelings become easier to think about working through and processing. You start to feel so much better physically and mentally that you're like, okay, I'm going to tackle the trauma now. But you don't feel so stuck in fight or flight, because that is still from the drugs. And so I mentioned in my last video about going to church for the first time in 10 years. I did feel some trauma where I was sitting there and everyone was praying and I just couldn't bring myself to close my eyes, because I'm like, where were you, God? I deserve answers. How could you have abandoned me for so long, allowed me to suffer like that when I begged, pleaded, cried out to you, bargained for so long? Like, that's like a traumatic type of thing. It felt traumatic to me anyway. And then dealing with the people who maybe not only made you feel isolated, but outright rejected you, gaslit you, took off, disappeared, told you, you were mentally ill, crazy, whatever. And there's all of that you need to process and work through. But that's another topic for another video. But the anhedonia, like everything else, will recover if you're in a heightened state, or you can be both. You can be in that heightened state and feel the anhedonia or cycle through it. That is irrelevant to recovery, in my opinion. It doesn't matter if you are heightened or you feel like your nervous system is shut down, or you go through both. It just changes once you recover. So hopefully that's helpful. If you experience anhedonia, let me know in the comments. What does it look like for you? How long have you been dealing with it? Do you find anything that relieves it slightly? Or if not, that's okay, because once things really turn around for you, it'll just go away like everything else does. I'm serious about that. It's crazy to think when you're in it, but that's just what happens when you recover. So I hope this was able to give you some hope, and let me know your thoughts and your feedback, and I'll see you next time. Bye.